All right, so we're going to have a look at the PeekTree features. So the PeekTree lives over here in what's called the left sidebar, this area over here. Shares the space with the universal category browser. So we can switch between the PeekTree and the universal category browser using these buttons up the top here. So we're going to be looking at the PeekTree features in this video. Now the left side bar here has the ability to toggle it open and close. So we've got a button up here that can hide and show the entire left side bar area. We also have the keyboard shortcut E to toggle this open and closed as well. And we also have a little pin feature here. So if we click on this, this will auto hide the left side bar. We can toggle it open again. But when we click away from the left side bar, it will close it. Now the PeekTree is where we do the navigation of all of our media in our database. It's got what's called nodes here for all of the different categories of features that we've got. Now, depending on your version of BaseHead will depend on which node features you have available. We're using the Ultra version of BaseHead here, so we've got all nodes available. Now we can choose to hide the nodes that we don't need by clicking the little settings cog here. So going into the PeekTree settings, if we don't need to use any of these particular nodes, we can just deselect them and it will remove them from the tree. Now we can also clear anything that's within any of these nodes. We can clear these particular nodes and it will clear all the records out from within. And then we also have a max records setting option here. So we can set the maximum limit that we want to store results for. But collections is used to store shortcuts to your files. So we can create a collection and create nested folders. These are virtual folders. And then we can add any of the files that we've got in our results list here into a collection. So what this does is this just stores a shortcut when we click on files here, loads it up, and then we can instantly spot that to track or use them as we normally would. One of the neat things about collections though is it's not tied to a database. So if I switch to a different database, for instance, so if I just switch to this database, the collections node stays exactly as is, and I can now go into imports from this library and start adding those directly. Just click, drag, and I can drop those. So this means that we can actually have multiple databases, but keep a reference to files from different databases. Very handy if you're working with different libraries, maybe music libraries, things like that, where you need access to files from across these libraries. But you don't want to keep switching between them. Collections is a really neat way of managing that. Now, collections we can also use to, as the name suggests, to create a collection of files, and then we can simply export the entire collection. So going into the right-click options or the little gear icon. So if we go into the little gear icon for a collection, comes up with the same options. And then we can choose to export all of the files from a collection, or we can just export the collection folder structure. So if we wanted to recreate the entire collection on a new install or a new system, then we can export that and then import that into a new system. Now, in addition to being able to add files from your database, you can directly drag files from your computer's file system. So files don't actually even have to be directly in a database for them to be used. We can actually add files that we might have been sent some things like ADR or voiceovers that we don't want to create an import for. We can just drag those, create a brand new folder. We might just call this ADR. And then what we can do is just from our file system, just drag files directly into this folder, and we have access to these as well. Clicking on those will load them. We can spot them into our project, and we can manage those in the same way that we do from our database, but we don't have to import them into a database. All right, next we have groups. So groups is similar to collections in that we can apply it to sound files and it makes a virtual collection. But groups is designed to be used as more of a favorite system. So what we do is we apply a group to files that we want to have within that group. So for instance, I've got an ambient group here. Click on this and it loads all the files that I've tagged with the ambience group. We have color coding available for the groups as well. We can just click on the little color box here and change it to any of the standard BaseHead colors. When we create a group, so click on the plus here to create a group. We give the group a name. We have the same little color picker here, or we can choose the colors from the window here, or we have custom colors available if we want a very specific color for a group. Now, because groups are color coded, when we select our import library, we will see that all of our records have a nice color coded group if we're showing the group field. Which makes it very easy to identify files that we've tagged. To add any files to a group, we just simply click, drag the file, and drop it straight into the group that we want to add it to. We can also, from the details panel here, we can go to the group and say that we want to add it to a quick reference. We'll change that to that. And now it's added to this quick reference group. And directly below groups, we have the imports libraries. So all of the imports that we've added to BaseHead. So when we want to add media to the BaseHead browser, we need to create an import library. So that's done by pressing Control and I, or going up to the database menu here and import files. What we would do is we would navigate to a folder or a location on our computer or on a network location. We would add that, and that would create one of these import libraries. Now, it is recommended if you've got quite a large database of files, quite a large collection of files, to split things up into individual imports. This just makes it a lot easier to manage. So, for instance, my field recordings here might be changing constantly. I might be adding files. I might need to update it constantly. So we can update that by clicking the refresh here. And that will update any files that have been changed, add new files, and remove files that have gone missing, all within the one process. So if you've got things set up into individual imports here, it just means that when we need to update and manage the libraries, it's going to be a lot quicker than having to scan through a million files every time we want to make a change. Now, the import libraries here, when we go to the search, so for instance, if I just reset the search here, what it's going to do is it's going to show all records of all the imports here. And when I'm doing a search, what it's going to do is it's going to search through every library that we've got here. This also includes CloudPack libraries, which we'll get to in a moment. If I want to exclude any of these imports from searches, so I don't want any of the results from my field recordings to appear in my searches, I can click on the little icon here, or even just right click and choose to show hide the library. What this will do is this will just temporarily remove all records from the database. So if I click on that, we get no records found. Now, the reverse function of this is if I wanted to do a search and specifically search in just these two libraries here, what I can do is hold down the Control key or Command if you're on Mac, and click this, and it will highlight this particular import. And now any searches that I do, and so the search results will come back from just these two libraries here. Now, this also works for groups. So if I wanted to limit my search just within the groups, for instance, I don't want to search within my libraries, just my groups. I can do the same thing. I can hold down the Control key or Command and select the groups. This also applies to CloudPack libraries as well. Now, if we need to remove a library, quite simply just click the remove icon. And then you do get the option to remove just the files from the list from the database, or remove the files from your computer as well. So just be cautious with which option you're choosing. Okay, so the next one we've got is the CloudPacks node. This is used for the CloudPacks that we have access to by what's called the CPM manager or the CloudPack manager. So the little button here opens up our CloudPack manager, and this allows us to browse, purchase, and add any of the commercial libraries that we might want to add to BaseHead directly into our database. So without going into, there is a full video on CloudPacks, but directly from within BaseHead, we have access to this commercial CloudPack store, where if we go to the store, for instance, there are a huge number of commercial CloudPacks covering almost every sound imaginable. We can click any of these CloudPacks, view the entire collection within BaseHead and even preview these sounds by just clicking on them, and then we get a preview that loads up, and then we can sort of decide whether these are the types of files that we need. Now, when we add these into BaseHead, they just appear as a CloudPack library, which is basically the same as an import library. So when I select one of these, it plays back the sounds and we can manage them in exactly the same way. Just a couple of things to note is that we can still do the exact same thing of removing a CloudPack from the database temporarily. So if we don't want it to come up in search results, we can control or command select and individually select CloudPacks to search. We also have the option at the moment, these CloudPacks, for instance, this Bloody Nightmares one is streaming from the cloud. So you can see when I select a file, it comes up in this sort of blue aqua color, and we also have this little cloud icon, meaning that this file is directly streaming from the cloud. We can then choose to download this entire collection if we need to. So we can work with these files in the same way that we work with a local file. We can spot this to track right now if we need to. But if we need to take this with us, if we need to work offline for whatever reason, we have a very simple little download button here, which will localize this library to our computer. And you can see that this library here, for instance, this beeps and buzzes, has already been localized. We've got a little tick here to indicate that yes, this is local. And playing these, you can see we've got the standard green waveform, meaning that it's playing off our local hard drive and we have access to it offline. Now, adding CloudPacks to the CloudPack node here is as simple as going to the management tab. So any CloudPacks that you've purchased, you can add these. You've also got the option to select free CloudPack. So let's say I want to check out this free CloudPack here. I can just click the add button here. Instantly pops up in BaseHead and we can check it out. You should note that free CloudPacks we cannot localize. These are only able to be streamed. But all of your commercial CloudPacks that you've purchased, you can localize those and use them from your hard drive. So to remove a CloudPack, we just simply click the little minus button and it removes it from the browser here. That CloudPack will now go back into the CPM manager, and if we need to add it back at a later stage, we can add it. So very easy to manage and add CloudPacks to and from BaseHead for projects that you're working on. All right, so we have the search nodes here. So these two tie together are favorite searches and recent searches. Basically, anytime we perform a search in BaseHead, so let's maybe search for pop. So we get a couple of pops here. Every time we do a search and we return results, the search is recorded under recent searches here. If I do a search, maybe Zag, which doesn't have any results, because no results are returned, it doesn't get recorded as a search. So only successful searches will be recorded. So depending on what your search history is set to, you'll have results listed under here and clicking on one of the previous searches will load that search back up into the search bar here. Now, if we've created rather a complex search, maybe we've utilized a number of these different boxes, what we can do is once we've created a search that we would like to go back to, any of these search results here, such as this little hit search here, I can add that to my favorite searches by just clicking the little plus button here. And then if I click this, it'll obviously reload it again as well. So for instance, I've got a search here, explosions, which I only wanted files that have a sample rate of 96K. And this loads it up so that I can recall that at a later date. And of course, these are dynamic as well. So if we add files down the track and re-trigger these searches, any new files will also be included in those search results. The history node is quite simply a record of files that we have played. So as we select files, you'll see that these files are being selected as played. These are all recorded in the history, and then I can go back if I've maybe noted a file that I played a few clicks ago that was pretty good. I can go back, click these files, and reload it. From there, if I want to, I can then spot that to track. I don't have to find it in the database. It just loads it straight into the waveform view, and I can start using it. So the history keeps a running history of everything. If we need to remove individual records, we can just click the little minus button and remove those. If you needed to wipe the history, easiest way, go into the settings and just simply delete the history from there. All right, so the paths node just keeps a record of the transfer paths that we've set. So down in the status bar here, we've got this little button which we can set our transfer paths. So anytime that we want to transfer files out of BaseHead, when we're transferring them to our tag list, or when we're just pressing C to copy a file, or just when transferring files into our door, we've got a transfer folder here which our files go into. So at the moment, my transfer folder is set to the desktop and export. I can change that by just clicking down here, selecting a new location for it. Every time I change this location, it will record that location in this paths node. And so I can reselect a location by just simply clicking on these paths here, and you'll see that it switches here. So if we need to export different files to a different location, then we can keep the records of our paths and just select where we need the files to go. All right, so the transfer node here keeps a record of all the files that we've transferred out of BaseHead into our door, or into the tag list, or just transferred into the transfers folder. So anytime we trigger a file to transfer out of BaseHead, this keeps a record of what files we've transferred out, so that we can go back, simply select a file if it still exists. So select a file and it will load it back into our waveform. Now, one neat thing that the transfer list does is, if we hover over this file here, for instance, we'll see that there's two paths that are listed. Now, this is because I didn't just transfer the entire file, I actually transferred a portion of the file. So if I click on the record here, it will load up the original file. So it's actually selected the original file in my database, but we've got this little target icon. And what this means is that if we have a look at the paths, the top path is the original file. The bottom path is where the transferred file has gone. So if I go and hover over this little play target icon, or click it, it will actually play the exported region. So in this sound file, what I've done is I've just simply selected one of the beeps, and that's what's been transferred. So this will work, obviously, if the transferred file still exists in its location, but it allows us to see both what we were using as the source file and the portion that we actually used. And then finally, we have the Wwise node here. So won't get too much into this. If you're a Wwise user and you're using the Wwise software, BaseHead does integrate directly to it. We can then send files directly to Wwise, and we can also modify, update files directly from BaseHead. So any of the files or the objects that we've sent and that we're working with within BaseHead and Wwise will show up in the list here, and then we can select these files, work with them, and update them in the Wwise software. And that pretty much covers everything in the PeekTree.